Hey, how y'all doing out there? You can call me IT2. I got a new podcast, visual podcast, called War Stories. You should check it out. It's gonna be good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and start the show. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna just start off and dive right into one of my stories, one of my most famous and popular stories that I tell my friends and family that know me from the days when I served in the Navy back in the early 2000s. But a little bit of introduction before we get into that. The purpose of this show is to give veterans a place to come and share their stories. I'm hoping to inspire others to come and share their stories as well. So it's not just something that I'm doing. And it'll be a fun thing where you can create your own avatar as well. And come on and join me and tell a couple of your war stories as well. So my first story starts out here where I was in boot camp with a guy. We called them RDCs back in those days. Recruit Division Commander. I think now they then went the way of basically the other like branches and services where they call them drill sergeants. And so my RDC was a Navy SEAL. Like he was a hardcore dude. Like he was a GM1, and dude was that's gunner's mate. For those who don't know that, but he went off to the SEAL training, and what happened was where the Navy SEAL training was the most intense thing. Everybody knows that Navy SEALs are like the most badass special forces in the world, right? So when you go off to that training, they kind of like train you to you can't be trained anymore. He was tough, he was badass, he just would go and go and go every time when he actually end up going there twice to the BUDS training. They called it the Navy SEAL training, and broke his foot twice, like both times, and they had to make him go home. He still wanted to stay. But yeah, so that's the start of my story. That's just the introduction of it. But so this guy highly respected, right? And he was somebody that you kind of look up to when you're first starting out. I was a E1 when I met him. He's an E6. He's highly decorated. He'd been in 13 years at that time. And so I messed around and went off, had my little Navy career, did okay. And 2, maybe 3 years down the road, I bumped into him. And it was at the Navy Exchange in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was with my ex-wife at the time and our daughter and our other daughter. And they were really tiny at that time. And just walking in the store, greeting the guy, he recognizes me. Which I never thought he would recognize me because the way they treated us in boot camp, but for those of you who have been in the military, they treat us like nothing. So I messed around and, kind of got to talking to him. It was just a short conversation. But he was like, you was the Iron Peel, right? I was like, yeah, how you remember that? Like, he's like, we always knew you was going to be special because he saw my rank. I was in my utilities. I was an E5 at the time, E5, IT2 SW, information system technician, E5, where you had went up, what was that, 4 ranks since the last time I seen him in a 2-year span, which is the fastest you can go up and do it. I went up every time I could. It was like they told me all I had to do was like just get good evals and pass a test. I'm like, okay, y'all might as well just give me my extra pay raise now. I know how to take tests. That's how I got in the military. I had a 71 on my ASVAL, where at that particular point in time, that was the highest score on that whole test cycle in the state of Alabama. And when you added in like the rest of my stuff, the score was like kind of ridiculous. And so I didn't realize it. I didn't know what was going on. So I was just a high school kid that took a test that when we were at Booker T. Washington High School, where I'm from in Tuskegee, Alabama, they don't tell you what the ASVAB even is. They just tell you, oh, all seniors go take the ASVAB. You get out of class. Okay, we just trying to get out of class. So I kind of sort of know a little bit about it because my older brothers have been in the National Guard Reserves and in the Army. And they had spoke a little bit about it to us, younger siblings and family members or whatever. And so when I took the test, I wasn't even serious about it. I had no aspirations on going to the military. I was going to go off to college. I was a B plus student. So I was, headed for college. I had got accepted to Tuskegee University. And I had got accepted. Well, that's the only school I actually applied to. That's a whole other story. But either way, when I tell you, I felt like freaking Baker Mayfield or somebody. I was like the #1 draft pick. I'm talking about my routine back in those days. This is like late 99, early 2000, somewhere in there. My senior year in high school, I would come home from school. As soon as I got home from school, the phone would ring. It would be another recruiter, Army recruiter, Coast Guard, Peace Corps, Navy, Army Reserve, Air Force. Like I didn't even realize how big a deal that was. Like the Air Force called me. But I don't know how they do it now, but back in those days, the Air Force didn't call nobody. Okay, they would just, they would. How do I say this? They entertain you if you come looking for them. But as far as them calling people, recruits or whatever, I had an offer from the Army that when I told people about it, it was like, man, that is not true. I wish I would have got it in writing. Not that I would take it, but it was one of those things where it was like, bro, they offered you what? They offered me, like I'm saying, this is 99, 2000, so this is a lot of money back then. It was a $20,000 sign-on bonus, a brand new car, and they guaranteed me that my permanent duty station would be 70 miles away from home, which basically means Fort Benning, Georgia. AKA Columbus, however you look at it. But yeah, so like I said, I didn't realize how big a deal that was. But my brother at the time told me, he was like, that ain't necessarily a good deal in reference to the 70 miles away from home duty station, because he was in, I think his permanent duty station was in when he got out, I think it was in Biloxi. Some places permanent duty station was that he was not in, basically. So they can play those games where it's like they can tell you that you're gonna have a permanent duty station that's near your home, but you might not necessarily be at that permanent duty station. You might be detached remotely somewhere else, which I know it's true now, obviously. But at the time, I had no idea. I probably would have considered that deal more. But when they put that in there, I was like, I don't want to be in the Army. I'm not trying to be a foot soldier. I didn't mind joining the Navy when I did, because I felt like it was something that was kind of chill and laid back. You're right on a ship, you chill. But But yeah, so essentially, this little character cracks me up. That's why I'm laughing. But essentially, I had a blast. I mean, it was fun for me, especially when I was first joining. I ended up meeting my recruiter at the senior night. Well, not the senior night. It was a career fair. That's what they call those things in high school. And we got to talking. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I feel like I was already like on his radar because, like I'm saying, people was blowing my house up trying to recruit me. So he was a recruiter out of Opelika for the Navy, and we got to talking, and he ended up saying he was gonna come back to the school like the next week and speak with me privately. And so we went into like a conference room and spoke about, the jobs that I could get with the type of score I got. And they was like, bro, you can do whatever you want to do. I was like, That's when I started considering it, because I was like, you get money to go to school. At that time, I think the GI Bill was like $40,000. They offered me like $75,000 with GI Bill and this other thing called Navy College Fund. And then they offered me a $8,000 sign-on bonus, which I did not get because I missed the test by 1 point to be a nuclear scientist. That's what that one was about. But I was glad I actually missed it because I enjoyed becoming an information system technician more, really. I probably would have hated being a nuke. I didn't really, want to do that. I just wanted the $8,000 bonus. Who wouldn't, right? And yeah, even that, it was a lot of things tied up in there. I didn't really understand. Like, I met guys that were nukes along the way of my career, and the school to go to nuke school was the hardest school in the Navy that most people watched out of. And if you don't make it through that school, which was a 2-year school, which it was in Florida, so a lot of distractions, good distractions. But so I think that a lot of people just took it for like, it didn't really pan out for me. In other words, that's what I'm trying to say. So either way, I digress. But yeah, so I ended up in this Navy exchange, like I'm saying, where realizing that like this dude had like kind of like put on when I was there in boot camp, because they never told us any type of positive reinforcement like that. They just like drilled this stuff into you. They trained you to the T. And our division, when I was in boot camp, I always say we was a CNO division, which those of you who were in the Navy, you know what that means. But those of you who weren't, like, when you're in boot camp, they turn everything into a competition. So our division was the best at everything you can possibly think of. We got the highest scores on all the tests. We did the drills. Excuse me. We did the drills better than anybody. Like the marching drills, and we had the best looking flag. We had a dude that was like a legit artist that did our flag. It was just everything. Our PTO score, our PT scores were off the charts. We had a dude that broke the record on the entire base for recruits. There was a instructor that was attached there years ago in the 90s, the early 90s, that had a higher time. It was like something ridiculous, like 7 minutes, mile and a half time. Which mine wasn't too shabby. I mean, my mile and a half was always like 8 something. So they took that score. It was like a cumulative score for the whole entire division, with like 60, 70 of us, and our scores were destroyed everybody. I was fasting because I was practicing Muslim at the time during boot camp, and I still got that score I got. If I wouldn't have been fasting, because I had just got done running track in high school, where we had gone to the state track meet in the 4x800. and placed pretty decent considering, because that was our only year of track at Booker T. Washington High School. So we didn't have the luxury of like being used to this stuff. I had ran track. I was the only one that had ran track on the whole team. I kind of helped them establish like the habits of the team, because I was the only one that had actual experience. The coach had track experience back when he went to Auburn University. Track coach, and the other track coach, woman, I think she ran track, but she was cheerleading. No, she was a cheerleading was her thing, and she was also the track coach though. But yeah, so we placed pretty decent, like I'm saying, considering that was our first year. Barring me, I had ran in 9th grade in Killeen, 9th grade center, and we were out in Texas, and I had ran cross country at Ellison 9th grade center before we had moved across town and transferred schools to rival schools on the other side of the city. Yeah, y'all think this Bama and this is Iron Bowl week, so that's still on my brain. We just lost some scrubs. Hashtag Roll Tide. But y'all think this Bama Auburn rivalry is big. We was a part of the Killeen Ellison rivalry out in Killeen, Texas, high school rivalry, where it'll be like 50,000 folks at the game. Easy. And so that's different because, college is like a lot of people. It's more people, but that's 50,000 people that's like closely knit. Like it's crazy. But anyway, I digress. So we ended up being what they call we actually did become the CNO division. That's the Chief of Naval Operations division, when you get recognized by all the bigwigs. But what I say is that we really were a Hall of Fame division, because we missed being Hall of Fame by like 0.0001 or something crazy like that. They could have rounded up for you, boy. But yeah, that was fun though. But I actually think that's where I'm gonna stop at here and wrap up this episode of War Stories. Tune in, check me out. You'll see me around the web. I'll be out here in these streets. But yeah, laters. This has been War Stories by Rush. This has been War Stories by IT2 SW.